Hello everyone. For this movement response, I chose the Lion Dance from New York's Chinatown. Before this assignment, I had seen Lion Dance during Lunar New Year celebrations, but I had never really paid attention to how difficult the movements actually are or thought about why they are being performed. One thing I learned while watching the video is that every movement has a purpose. The lion isn't just dancing randomly, the performers are trying to make the lion feel alive. Through the movement, the lion can appear playful, curious, protective, energetic, or even intimidating. Even though I couldn't perform the dance exactly as it is traditionally done, because it normally takes two performers inside one costume, I wanted to capture the overall feeling and energy of the dance. Instead of focusing on perfect technique, I focused on what emotions the movements create and how those emotions inspired my own choreography. The first movement I practiced was the lion's bouncing steps. These steps were harder than they looked because I had to stay low while continuing to move. My legs started getting tired pretty quickly. What surprised me was that the movement didn't just feel powerful, it also felt playful. The bouncing made me feel like I was exploring my surroundings rather than just simply walking across the floor. I think that's one reason audiences enjoy watching lion dance. Even though the lion represents strength, it also has personality. The next movement I practiced was the sharp head shakes and nods. This movement made me realize how important small details are in dance. Just changing the direction of my head completely changed the personality of the movement. Looking around quickly made the lion seem curious, while slower movements made it seem calm or alert. It reminded me that storytelling doesn't always require complicated choreography. Another movement I practiced was the circular body movement that represents the lion's tail. This movement helped me connect everything together. Without it, the dance would feel very stiff and mechanical. The circular movement made everything feel smoother and more natural. I also noticed that this movement helped create balance between the energetic parts of the dance and the calmer moments. Final movement I learned was the low pounce. This was probably my favorite movement because it made me feel confident. The movement requires commitment. If you hesitate, it doesn't have the same effect. That confidence became the inspiration for the movements I decided to add. After practicing these movements several times, I stopped thinking about memorizing choreography and started thinking about how the dance made me feel. The feelings that stood out to me the most were confidence, protection, excitement, and celebration. I also noticed that the dance constantly switches between strong and playful. The lion isn't always serious. Sometimes it almost seems curious or mischievous before suddenly becoming powerful again. Instead of trying to invent movements that looked completely different, I wanted my additions to continue telling the same story and keep the same emotional energy. For the first movement, I began in a low position and slowly rise while opening my chest and extending my arms. I chose this because the original dance made me feel confident. Opening my chest symbolizes courage. It also feels protective, almost like standing between danger and the people you're trying to protect. The second movement is a quick spin followed by a relaxed shake. I added this because one thing I really liked about the lion dance was that it never felt overly serious. Even though the lion represents strength, it still has moments where it feels almost curious or playful. I wanted to keep that balance in my choreography. For the third movement, instead of making this movement feel fast, I intentionally slowed it down. I think confidence isn't always shown through speed. Sometimes moving slowly actually shows more control. To me, this movement represents patience and self-confidence. My last movement is a small jump with both arms reaching upward. I wanted the ending to feel optimistic. Since lion dance are often performed during celebrations and festivals, ending with an upward movement seemed like a good way to represent happiness, good fortune, and positive energy. This assignment changed the way I looked at the lion dance. Before doing this, I mostly saw it as something performed during festivals, but after trying to learn some of the movements myself, I realized how much control, balance, and expression is involved. I also noticed that traditional dances aren't just about copying movements. They're about communicating emotions and telling stories through movement. Even though my choreography was much simpler than the original performance, I tried to stay true to the same qualities that I experienced while practicing the dance. I think that's what I enjoyed the most about this assignment. It wasn't about creating something completely new. It was about taking inspiration from traditional dance, understanding how it made me feel, and then expressing those feelings through my own movement. Overall, the lion dance made me feel powerful, energetic, and confident, but it also reminded me that strength doesn't always have to look aggressive. Sometimes strength can be playful, joyful, and welcoming, and I tried to reflect all of those emotions in the four movements I created.